Welcome to the Scalable Real Estate Investing Podcast, where we discuss the most scalable strategies, tools, and approaches to successfully invest in real estate. Learn how to make the most impact of your time, automate your real estate investing business, find off-market deals with minimum time invested, and leverage your capital to create as many income streams as possible so that you can achieve true financial independence. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Mason Clement. Hi, Scalable Investors. Before we get into today's episode, I'd like to tell you about a group that I'm a part of called HiveMind. If you're serious about taking the next step in your real estate investing career, then this is definitely a group that you need to join. Some of our members are making $90,000 or more per month and as much as $300,000 on just one deal. And at the same time, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars like you typically would joining other mastermind groups. This is only $99 per month. And when you join, you'll gain access to a robust integrated CRM software that allows you to track your leads, run automated triggers, and ultimately scale your marketing efforts. So the difference here is that you're not left high and dry, but gain access to a support network that allows you to use that tool and learn from other more experienced real estate investors. So to learn more, go to scalablerei.com/HiveMind. That's HIVEMIND. Thanks a lot. Let's get into the episode. Hi, Scalable Investors. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Scalable Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Mason Clement, and today we have with us Dr. Phil Agrios, who is a business breakthrough specialist, mentor, coach, author, and so much more. So really excited to have him on the show. He's worked with over 20,000 different clients, and before that, he was running his own chiropractic clinic that went from a one-person suite to 2,700 square feet, occupying entire half of a building. So tons of experience here. Phil, let's get into things. How are you doing?
Mason, it's great seeing you again. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Sure, no problem. So yeah, I know a little bit about you before we started recording, and since we already met previously, but why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about your background and what you're doing today?
Yeah, like you said, I used to be a chiropractor and a functional medicine practitioner. My specialty was thyroid and autoimmune. And during the process of the years, I've been practicing for 35 years, I was wondering why I wasn't being as successful or repeating my success. And I found myself on this journey feeling that I wasn't being taught something. And what I was able to find was a protective trait that we're born with. And I call it the inborn sabotaging trait. It doesn't undermine us, but it actually protects us from the very success that we seek, because that success is subconsciously more painful than us changing our ineffective behavior. And then when I first found this, I was like, there's no way. This is way too simple. So I went out to try to disprove it. And over 30 years of thousands and thousands of people, I couldn't. And I was able to find a way to actually switch it off instantly, and it worked 100% of the time. And I call it the antidote. So I started utilizing it with my patients, the sick of the sickest. That's what autoimmune patients are. And I was getting really high success rates because I was showing them why health was actually more painful than staying in their disease state. And as we started working with it, my business owners were making major breakthroughs. So I thought, wow, I never thought about putting this towards business. So I started working on it, wrote my book, and I started working with business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives worldwide. And then I decided to close my practice because I felt this was where I needed to be at that moment in time. And that's where I'm here with you in a brief, concise summary. Good?
Oh yeah, definitely. You were able to digest that down. So it's great. So if people go to your website, they can do a short quiz. It takes, I don't know, 10 seconds or 30 seconds.
And about a minute. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I went ahead and did it, and I got my own. We can get into that later in terms of like my own self-saboteur. But can you just go into the different types of the self-saboteurs? Like how many are there and what are they and all that?
Sure. Out of 7-8 billion people in the world, there are only 3 saboteurs. I didn't believe it either, but it is. And so there are 3 of them. It's called a director. So everybody write this down. Write down director saboteur, supplier saboteur, and the communicator saboteur. So director, supplier, communicator, saboteur is a something or somebody who is that sabotages. So a director saboteur is a person who is scattered, who is all over the place. They'll get 99% done with something and stop and do something else. Chaos is their friend. It stimulates their brain and it causes them to really try to focus, but it causes them to really overly connect and feel really bad because they're not really giving to the people who they really wanted to do. They don't like to be told what to do. All right. Now, there are times when they go to the other extreme. They can get so focused that they actually have a distortion of time. What takes them 3 minutes takes them 3 hours and vice versa. Like, hey, honey, I'll be out in 5 minutes. In 5 hours, they emerge. So after they get done, because they've been focusing on this for 2 days, because two things, they waited to the last minute, or what happened was they really loved doing it. Then they emerge, it's completed, and they go, oh my God, now I'm even more behind. And then they go back being scattered and all over the place. So they go back and forth like this. The supplier saboteur is a person that overly gives. They overly supply. They have a hard time saying no. They give too much because they feel that if they don't, they're selfish. And they misunderstand between self-nourishment and selfishness. They're not the same thing. People have taken advantage of their kindness and their generosity. They overly share, especially on a first date or when they first meeting, or a business owner. So, if you're sitting there with an investor, you may overly share when you give too much and you actually push that investor away. Then they can go to the other extreme and go, you know what, I've had it. You've taken advantage of me. Screw you. I'm done with you. And then they start being resentful because these people weren't giving back to what they gave. Then after a while, they feel guilty, and then they overly give, and they go back and forth. So they go back and forth. So that sounds like some of you, or it sounds like somebody you know. That's called a supplier saboteur. The last one is the communicator saboteur. These are the people, they're very loyal, and they listen really well, but they don't express themselves. You do not know what the hell they're thinking or they're feeling. You got to guess. And they get upset with you when you guess because they're not explaining to you. Well, they should know already. Well, they don't. So that's why they can't understand you. But they have a hard time confronting because they don't want to feel stupid and embarrassed. So they keep to themselves and they overly process things. You can have an argument with them. They'll disconnect and leave you. 2 days later, they'll come back and start the conversation again. And you've moved on going, I'm done. But they have had to over process things. Now, what they do is they can go to the other extreme where they'll give it to you and they've had enough, and they'll express it to you, or they still have a hard time expressing. So they'll just under their breath kind of like tell you're an idiot and everything else, but you still will never know what they're feeling because they don't feel comfortable telling you that. And then what happens is they'll go back the other way and disconnect from you and go from there. So those are the three. The director being the scattered and all over the place, the supplier overly giving, and the communicator not really expressing themselves.
Okay. And is it possible to have one of these three be like the dominant one, but then sometimes you have elements of the other ones?
Perfect. Great question. Now, there's a thing called this personality sequence that I discovered. There are two other traits. There's a dominant trait, a mediator trait, and a saboteur, and they create this sequence. Now, all three, you might go, they sound like I do some of them. All three are within you, but you use one more that sabotages yourself, and then others will be placed in the dominant and the mediator trait. So when you have this sequence, and I know the sequence, I can tell you everything about you. I can tell you why you failed, why you succeeded in the past. I can tell you why your relationships did well, they didn't, and never meet you. I had a situation with a client of mine who was a developer, and he had a problem with his partner and the attorney. They weren't talking. So I told him exactly what to do because I asked him a few questions, ascertained both of their personality stress sequence. He came back to me and goes, oh my God, it worked like a charm. I talked to this one guy who was a communicator saboteur. He was able to open up to me. His partner was a director saboteur all over the place. He was able to get him focused, and he himself was a supplier saboteur, which was overly giving to both of them. And once he understood the dynamic, never met the other two, the deal went through. So that's how effective this can be.
Okay, got it. And one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of this show is just how important it is to be aware of this, because I feel like you could be trying to invest in real estate or really do anything else in your life for years, like decades, like maybe all of your life, and without knowing why you're not really reaching your full success. And that's what really intrigued me about what you're doing and why I wanted to have you on the show, because I feel like everyone's just a few steps away from reaching that next level. They probably just don't know how to get there. And I think the first step is just becoming aware of how you're operating, because I remember taking a psychology class in college where they talk about I forget what it's called. How do you say it? The Johor's window or something. There's window panes. There's 4 window panes, and you can see one of them, but no one else can see it. And there's one pane where you cannot see it, but everyone else can. And so you could be operating and just be completely blind to yourself and how you're actually, functioning. And that's why I really wanted to get into all this. Would you say it's pretty
absolutely.
accurate?
Oh, absolutely. Because what happens is I work with a lot of coaches, and a lot of them that they're so close to themselves. I help them to pull it out and then say, now you understand. Now go do what you got to do and do what you do best, and then go help people. But you get so close to yourself. I've dealt with a lot of developers and investors and real estate people that just couldn't get past the past. And I worked with one developer. He started out as flipping houses, and now he's making multi-million dollars in as a developer, because as we start to help him to understand, he was a supplier saboteur. He didn't feel he was worthy of this stuff, and he always had to give, and he was actually made this shift, and his business increased 350%. Because he realized the shift and where he would have never made that if he didn't understand his saboteur as well as his dominant. See, your dominant is your superpower. Think about Superman coming into your house trying to organize, and all of a sudden now there's holes in the walls and he's breaking furniture because he doesn't realize how powerful he is. That's what happens to your dominant. When your saboteur doesn't kick in, your dominant kicks in and causes more problems for you. And as soon as you start utilizing your antidote, which we didn't talk about, as soon as you utilize your antidote, you balance out instantly. And that's what happens. The antidote is the way to switch off your inborn sabotaging trait immediately, and it works 100% of the time. Now, what happens when you tell someone this works 100% of the time? What should you do? Run, like really fast and far away. And I knew this, so my reputation is very important to me. And over 30 years, still, whether or not you're a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company or a child, this works. So that's why I call it the antidote, because it always works. And once you get the antidote, you're now allowed to balance between the two and balance immediately. And I've seen people with an hour and a half or sooner see things shift in their lives immediately.
Okay. That's very exciting. So I'd like to dig into one of those, because like I said a second ago, I took the quiz and I discovered my own saboteur, and it was the director saboteur. And I read how you described it, jumping around doing 150 different things and then getting 99% done and then jump to the next thing. And that's exactly what happens. And actually my wife constantly gets frustrated with me because I do that exact thing you said, where it's like, yeah, in 5 minutes, we'll go to the grocery store after that. And then like 5 hours later, I'm still not out. So.
Right. It's like people go, this is scary. And like, no, it's exciting. You're finally figuring out, I took all the gurus, right? And it was frustrating to me. What I really found was I was taking all their great work and applying it to the dominant and the mediator trait, because it was subconsciously easier. But once in a while, just like a blind squirrel finds a nut, it would hit the antidote, that information from them, and then I would get successful, but I had no idea why I was successful. And then I would not be successful in this hamster wheel going round and round. Now I teach people how to take information and put it towards the antidote so they can repeat success over and over again.
Okay. Perfect. So on the page, though, it says that you do like a 15-minute walkthrough of the profile. So why don't we just do it on myself, dissect myself a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
How do you do this walkthrough? Or I'm just pressing the start button on
Right.
this.
So what's really cool is you're really seeing that you're scattered all over the place, right? And one of the things with director saboteurs, they not only have a behavior problem, they can also have a chemical problem. You can have a dopamine or a serotonin deficiency. One thing that people love to work with me is not only they're getting a consultant, they're getting a doctor. Because a lot of times they can't do certain things because they have inflammation in the body, what they're eating, thinking, and drinking. They never see that. Coaches never think about how people are actually causing harm to themselves and they can't actually do the homework the coach gave them or whatever the person needs to do. So with that end of it, by you understanding that, when you start to increase your personal professional power and you start feeling uncomfortable, that director saboteur kicks in to protect you. That's all it does. It's protection. There's nothing wrong with you at that moment. You're just feeling uncomfortable and you start to get scattered, or you need to feel, oh my God, I got to get focused. So there's only two things we do. We protect, we grow, we expand, we contract, we give and take. That's it, man. There is nothing wrong with anybody. You're not an idiot. You're not a loser. It's just you're in protection because subconsciously doing what you need to do is painful. And get excited because at that moment when you're using your inborn sabotaging trait, you were ready to evolve. But now that once you know the inborn sabotage trait, you can now understand why you're stuck immediately. And then using your antidote, you can go into the growth phase. Have you used some of your antidotes since you started learned about it?
Not exactly yet. I guess I just wasn't sure. Honestly, I've been busy doing thousands of things. So no.
Again, this is what a great experience. Thank you so much for being vulnerable, right? You know, vulnerability creates credibility, man. By you telling people what you do, they really, a lot of them are understanding and they're like, man, that's exactly what my wife does. My husband does the same thing, right? So yeah, by not even getting to the antidote. And that's why it's so ingrained. But why I have a 5-week online course that I call Transcendence 101 Sabotage to Success. And we dive really deep into this so that you can actually start using your antidote immediately to understand it. And then what you'll do is you'll find out why you have the 1,000 things doing. Because by you changing you, then you'll see that you have less chaos because now you're being more specific to the point of where what you want to do and start utilizing and taking care of tasks that are important, not the other little things that are easier for you. Does that help? So you need becoming aware of, at this moment, I'm all over the place. I need to stop. I need to pull back a little bit. Am I just doing this because I really don't want to do this other thing because I don't know what? Because a lot of times you don't have enough knowledge, you freeze, right? So you got to pull back, and I go through some specific steps with director saboteurs so you can immediately go into the awareness and actually follow through and complete your task. But here's the cool thing with director saboteurs. As soon as you complete your task, you freak out because you're now calm. But you're missing that chaos. But over time, as you start utilizing your antidote, you don't need the chaos. That's the beauty of it for a director saboteur. With supplier saboteurs, them overly giving, right? With that investor or trying to figure out, you know, I got to do investing, or now, wow, I'm going to make this much money. They can actually push it away because they don't feel that they're worthy. Communicators have a hard time initiating things with investors, or, you know, I got to take action because they don't want to feel stupid. So they over process it, and it takes them a while to actually go forward and actually make the deal. Have you seen that with some of your people that you know, right?
Right. So I just want to better understand what is the antidote exactly. I mean, I think you kind of hit on it. Like, obviously being aware of stuff. Is it just holding yourself back, or stopping before you start doing that thing, or?
Right. When you get the antidote, I just give you a kind of a piece of it. I used to go much deeper, and people would just kind of like, wow, this is like blowing my mind. So I just give people a little bit, and that little bit have changed people's lives. So your antidote is to become aware and follow through. So at that moment when you're stressed, you need to realize that I'm stressed at this moment, and stress is not going to make me efficient. So I need to know that I'm going down this road improperly, or I've been at this for 5 hours. I need to be aware. I got to take a break. I got to pull back, get out of this, not be 5 hours, maybe an hour, and realize, you know what, I'm really doing this because I really love this, not because I really need to do it. I really need to do this thing. So the first thing for you as directors is to become aware. Then from there, go follow through and do certain things I show people in the course that really stop them so they can complete the task and they can move forward. But the most important thing is stop bringing the same stuff in over and over again. So you got to realize everything outside of you is you, right? The person you can't stand shows up because it's a part of you you can't stand. And by knowing the inborn sabotaging trait and using the antidote, two things happen. They leave or they change. I see that every day in everybody's lives and in my work. But right now, by you actually sitting and becoming aware, knowing that what I need to do and what's important, what's my priority, not what's easier. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, definitely. I mentioned on a different episode, I've been working through Tony Robbins' Time of Your Life program. And it feels like there's a lot of overlap there. I just mentioned that not to promote his material, but he does talk about how like people are constantly working on what seems to be urgent, but it's actually not important. And he has this diagram, and the most important thing is to focus on like doing what's important, but not urgent, because that's actually what's the most fulfilling and what's going to continue paying dividends over time. And it's like, in my business, it's, for example, building more relationships with buyers. So that way, whenever I find a property, I can keep feeding them deals and I have a constant flow of business instead of having to stop and go where I'm stuck in first gear because I have all these sellers. They want to sell their property, but I don't have a buyer for them. And then it risks having the deal fall apart and all that stuff. So
right. And the director saboteur. Right, and the director saboteur underneath that is stopping you from getting more deals because you don't think you have enough buyers, and then you have this whole hamster wheel. Now, here's the thing. Have you heard from Tony to anybody else? Great work. But what I found, what was missing is being specific. Have you heard him ever say mindset? You got to have mindset, or anybody, right? Right. Director saboteurs need mindset. A supplier and a communicator saboteur do not need mindset. That's why it doesn't work for them. They need something else. Okay. So that's why I was able to really understand it's specific to the person of what they need. You and your wife most likely are different, right? And this is what's cool about this too. In the course, we actually help you understand the other person's inborn sabotaging trait. I've helped save marriages, partnerships, parent-child relationships have exploded because they now understand why the other person's doing what they're doing. Now, so if you and your wife were a client of mine or took the course, at the end, you wouldn't know. She would know why you are who you are, right? Because that's for you for the rest of your life. The saboteur is there in order for us to evolve. If it wasn't there, you and I would be having a conversation how bored you are because everything came so easily to you. Right? So life is about adversity in order for us to evolve. Once she understands this, then she'll use her antidote to your antidote, and then conflict can immediately shift, as well as you will understand her and why she does what she does, and now support her in the way she needs to be supported, not in the way you think she needs to be supported, which is exactly how you need to be supported. Same thing with investors or buyers. I have a closing rate to increase your closing rates by 86.2%, because once you understand another person's inborn sabotage trait and the resistance, you'll know exactly why they're resisting and move them to the product or the deal if that's exactly what they need to do. Make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think that what you've just outlined is essentially just kind of guessing and just throwing darts at a dartboard, maybe blindfolded and just hoping that it works out, and like really knowing how someone else is programmed, the other person you're interacting with, whether it's your wife or that seller of the property. That's really what makes it all work, right?
Yeah, and that's why I have a 6-step blueprint for sales. But again, that's what really, when we do this transcendence course, we dive deeply into inborn sabotaging trait first week. You understand that. Second week, you understand your personality sequence. You get that, you'll know everything about yourself. The third thing is there's one subconscious word that you use that actually stops all your goals. It stops it in the past, it's stopping them now, and it stops it for the rest of your life. Do you think that would be a good word to know? Right?
Yeah,
Once you
definitely.
understand the subconscious word, we put 5 steps against that one subconscious word, and now you can achieve your goals. The other thing that we dive deeply into is that when you guys are trying to do your business, you do coping methods. You cope with your stress. Now, remember how these guys set up an elaborate domino setup, right? And they push this one domino and goes, and the last domino hits. Let's say the balloons is what the last thing happens, and the climax are balloons that release. When that happens, what do you focus on? What's the last thing you see?
Balloons.
The balloons, right?
Hmm.
That's your anxiety. That's your stress. That's all the end result, the last thing that you're stressed about. So we use your coping methods and you're putting it on to what? The balloons, not the one domino. What's easier, holding down all the balloons or stop pushing the damn domino? So when you push this inborn sabotaging trait, it goes down the road of frustration and desperation. And when you move the domino to the other direction of the antidote, it now leads to inspiration, which is not motivation.
Okay.
And that's what we learn. And then from there, you get a plan to transcend your business, your career, and your life. And that's what my 5-week online course is. It's video training in the beginning, less than an hour. And then we get on for about an hour and a half live Zoom. And I start talking to you guys and you go, wow, now let's say you're on it and you go, wow, this other guy's a director saboteur. Well, he did that. That sounds really good. So now you start to understand what other people are doing to be successful. And then you go, my God, that sounds like my wife. That sounds like my kid. It sounds like my business partner. Wow, now I really understand why they're doing what they're doing. And this whole relationship starts to shift in your life because now your vibration changes. As your vibration changes, then new things, events, and people come into your life to reinforce your new vibration. It's law. That's how it works. If you're miserable and feel stress and you feel lack, it's because that's why you continue bringing it in. It has to reinforce what you want, right? Even though I don't really want that. No, you do, because that's how you're feeling, all right? Because actually getting successful is actually more painful, so you stay in this state. As you find your inborn sabotage trait and use your antidote, you will then shift your vibration and new and things will come your way. I see it every day, and that's what's really cool about it.
Okay. So you do a group. It's basically, it's really interesting. It's a mastermind, not just for like real estate deals, but a mastermind for self-improvement and mindset and everything, right? Is that how you would
Yeah,
describe it?
it brings it up. Yeah, I do 2 things. I can do a one-on-one. I do one-on-one coaching with people, or I have this coaching group course that just works phenomenal. And it's actually guaranteed. After the second week, if people don't feel that this is right for them, they get 100% of the money back. And I've never had anybody ask me for their money back because it works. Because once they know their personality stress sequence, they do not want to go back. They want to continue moving forward and finding out what else is going on. And they start seeing major differences between the first and second week. And that's why we do it that way.
Okay, cool. I know you have another course called Rise Above Adversity. So how is that related to Transcendence? How does it differ from the Transcendence 101?
The Rise Above Adversity is just a self-help little course. The first part, we dive into the inborn sabotaging trait and antidotes. You don't get me one-on-one, or you don't get me in a group. It's just by yourself. And then I give you 5 proven stress busting techniques that will eliminate and neutralize your stress immediately. We go into 2 words that you can use that neutralize and depersonalizes stress. We talk about a particular way to never forgive again. What happens is that we always got to feel like we have to forgive. Once you're grateful for something, you don't have to forgive. So I kind of show you how gratitude and forgiveness are the same. And once you do that, you never have to forgive yourself or anybody else. There's a meditation that really reinforces the antidote. There is a breathing technique that works really, really well to help you focus and shift and make you feel worthy and help you to start taking action. And the other thing is, remember I told you that person that shows up that you can't stand and you will tell me that it's not you. I go through steps to show you that is really you. It always works, and you'll see that person is just showing up because of you. And how to handle any adversity. whether from major deaths to whatever the case may be. I go through the process to showing that the adversity is just there to help you move forward, and that if it wasn't there, you would have lost different things that you gained and helped you shift into something and that you never thought about. So that's what the that particular online course is about.
Okay, that's very helpful. So you also have this FIT system, the FIT system. So
right,
what
the
is
FIT
that?
is great. Yeah. The FIT system, it helps people to understand how to become free, that the inborn sabotaging trait is really the reason for all your blocks. And that's what really kicked me. I was like, oh my God, there's nothing wrong with me. We talked about that it's really just that. And once you understand that this one thing is the reason for your blocks, it creates this freedom within you. And then once you really dive deeper into it and understand it, and really start utilizing the antidote, this influence comes over you. Because as you start changing your vibration, you start feeling more confident, you start feeling more successful. This influence then affects other people, and then from there it takes the necessary action in order for you to actually transform and actually enable you to transform your own life, your business, your personal life to increase your power. So that's kind of a shift we do also with one-on-one clients. But I also do with some other courses as well. But for now, what we do is we just offer the Transcendence 101 because it's 101. It's basic stuff, but so powerful. And then go from there.
Okay. So you said Transcendence 101, but there's also group calls. So is it both of them?
No, that's the group. That's the group coaching one. Is the Transcendence 101. They can they can go to T as in Tom 101group.com. So it's www.t101group.com. They can look at it. We have some things coming up right now, and they can look at it. They'll see all the testimonials from a lot of different people, and people have taken the course, and they can pick the date, and they can invest in it.
Okay, got it. I also noticed that you have, you may have already hit on this, but there's 6 steps to immediately increasing closing rates. So what are those 6 steps?
Well, that's going to be too long to explain to you. However, I was able to discover 6 steps that nature uses to come back from her storms, right? A hurricane, then there's flowers, right? Or a tornado, and all of a sudden now there's grass and everything else. The nature always comes back with success. And when I realized what those 6 steps were, I realized that it was the same blueprint that we have, that we actually have the same 6 steps to solve any business or personal problem, guaranteed. And then what I realized too, as I was working with clients and helping them to understand what I was having, I used the same 6 steps to show them completely how to increase their sales, and as it was increasing my success rate. I have over a 95% closing rate, right? Because I'm able to now know my steps. I understand the resistance of the person, and if the person really needs it, right, you really needs your product, now you can then drive them to that product that you think or service that you really feel that they need, and then from there, those are the 6 steps. And then during the process, when I took the 6 steps and I put them the opposites together, I was able to discover the 3 saboteurs. That's how the whole process. This has been over 30 years of my life. So it wasn't like, oh, I found that a couple of years ago. This is over and over and shifting and trying to figure this all out. Because I went through a lot of stuff. I went through financial ruin a few times, the death of my father with brain cancer. Then I became the primary caretaker of my mom for 7 years until she passed. I was on disability. I lost my practice. I was told I would never practice again. And then I was able to finally, through this technique, as well as some other techniques I discovered, was able to start practicing again. And then I shifted into being a coach. One of my daughters almost committed suicide. They said that my ex-wife came home 10 minutes later, she would have been dead. I went through a horrific divorce. I went through a lot of stuff, and I'm okay with everything because I have no regret, because it all allowed me to discover what I did, because I'm here. Because one time I had an interview asked me, why do I get out of bed every morning? I really wanted to say because I had, I'm getting older, I had to pee, but no. But I was like, I found something so powerful, but I was given a gift to help others to understand it, thousands of others, so they can increase their businesses, to change their lives, get their businesses going, to helping their children, helping them with their health conditions. And that's why I get up 5 o'clock every morning, because I want to impact people. My goal is to impact minimally 1 million people, and that's my why I'm doing this, why I'm doing with everything I need to do.
Okay. I know that we've kind of been speaking at a high level. I'd like to learn through examples. So obviously we don't want you to disclose client names or anything, but could you discuss an example where I know you did mention one example previously, but let's go into a different example other than the guy that
Sure.
increased by 350% his business.
Right. So Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh is one of the top 10 business coaches in the world. And he was listening to me speaking and got off the stage, and he said to me, he says, I want to know what my inborn sabotage and trade antidote is. I said, cool. So we went to a side. I gave it to him. Within an hour, he was on stage using his antidote. And he came down and goes, that was powerful. He actually increased more of his sales by him actually feeling that way. And now he's using it in his business and his personal life. Jack Canfield, the co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, gave that to him as well. He saw a shift in his as well. I had a manager, because I do a workshop where I show how the staff as well as the business owners actually subconsciously sabotage the business. See, your business has its own inborn sabotage and trait and antidote, and you subconsciously sabotage your business by using your saboteur to the business's saboteur. And once I teach you to use your antidote to the business's antidote, it's like a valve of success. It just kicks in. So he comes up to me and goes, my son's always upstairs playing video games. I can't get him downstairs to interact with the family. So I asked him a few questions, ascertained his son's inborn sabotage and trait, gave him a more in-depth antidote than what the website gives you. Within less than a week, his son was downstairs interacting with the family, and in 2 months, the relationship skyrocketed. The reason why is because he really understood my work, dove deeply into it. He was the one that was actually pushing his son back into the room. That was the cool part. He goes, holy mackerel, what I was doing, I was the one that pushing him in. And once he started shifting, their relationship just increased, because he was making fun of him and other things, because that's how we grow up. We bust each other's chops. But because his son was a particular saboteur, the communicator saboteur, he was actually pushing his son back into the room and closing it out. So it kind of gives you an overall of, from health to business owners to everything else. I can give you more, and we can keep on going, but let me know.
Okay. Well, you hit on something too that's really interesting, that your business can have its own saboteur and antidote. Could you just flesh that out a little bit?
Sure. How I found it was my practice was hitting a ceiling. I couldn't understand why I couldn't grow anymore. And I realized that it took me about a year to really discover how I knew a business was an entity, was a living, breathing thing. And then when I found it enabled me to realize that I was hitting the ceiling because it was time for me to shift. Right? People are probably realizing, how can I shift? I'm having this job and I want to do this career in investing, but I don't want to do that in real estate because of the fear. Once I realized that, I was able to go from doctor to consultant. And then I had all my business owners come in. I said, check this out. And they were like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this. And they were able to make leaps and bounds immediately because of that. So yes, your own business has its own sequence. And what happens is that let's say you're a director saboteur, you're saying, right? Let's say your business is a communicator saboteur, okay? And what you'll do is that you'll actually use your scatterness and your inability to you're not understanding how to communicate. So what happens is your director reinforces the communication of the business. Therefore, you never are able to get out and do emails and communicate to the people. And what happens is now you're the best kept investor and real estate person known, because you're not communicating it, because you don't know how to do it to your business. And then depending on the dominant of the business, you'll reinforce that and create more of an imbalance. Was able to understand that, right? So it all depends on what your saboteur is. You could be the same as your business, but a lot of times it isn't. So once you understand that, it kind of kicks in. You go, oh my God, that makes so much sense. And that's what happened to me. I was doing the same thing. My business was a communicator saboteur, and I realized, oh my God, it's about marketing. This was my problem. Now, when I dealt with my clients, they will try to guess, and a lot of times they guess wrong because they're not focusing on the saboteur. They're really focusing on the dominant, and that's why it doesn't work. And once they go through the formula, they get it immediately, and now we know exactly what they're doing. And then we'll know exactly all their employees, how they're reinforcing that saboteur of the business and how to shift it immediately.
Okay, so it's not necessarily your business. It's not necessarily like a reflection of your own personal saboteur. It's kind of a dependent on, I guess, the composition of the employees and the customers and just all of the other stuff in the equation.
Exactly. And I'm glad it wasn't the same as mine, because I would think that everybody else is the same way. But when I saw it was different than mine, I was like, that's interesting. And then, yeah, the majority of times it's different. Sometimes it is, but even then, once you really understand how you relate to that, same thing as your wife, same thing as your child. If you have 3 children, if you know each and every one's inborn sabotage trait, you will now treat them and work with them differently. And that's why a lot of times it gets frustrating, because you're trying to deal with all 3 kids the same way, and it doesn't work out.
Okay, so if I have kids or my wife, and like obviously I can ask them, since they're humans, I can ask them to take the quiz and quickly identify what their inborn saboteur is. But how do I ask my business to do that? How do I diagnose the business?
And that's the formula I finally found. It took me a year to find it. So by going through a particular formula, you are able to find your inborn sabotage trait of your business. And then we start mapping out what that looks like, why this has been occurring all the years of your business, how to shift it, and then create a plan, an in-depth plan, so that it doesn't happen again, and you start shifting it.
Okay, got it. Is that through the Transcendence 101, or is that the one-on-one coaching?
No, that's actually Transcendence 201. We deal with businesses, or that I work with one-on-one clients, and I'll go directly into that, doing one-on-one with them.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think that I've hit on all the questions, but do you feel like we're missing anything else that you want to get in there?
No, they can do is they can go, if they really want their inborn sabotage and trading Antidote for free, you can take a 9-question quiz, just like Mason did. And you can go to sabquiz.com. That's S-A-B. It's short for sabotage, because a lot of times, even sometimes I misspell sabotage. Sabquiz.com. And you'll take a 9-question. Read the instructions, please. If you're director saboteur, you probably just buzz through it. But you have to take the quiz as if you were not doing, if you were coached, if you were having therapy. You want to take it as if you're using your old pattern. So just read the instructions. They're really quick. Take the 9-question quiz. You'll get it, and then you'll have an opportunity to have a 30-minute free consultation with me. That's most likely going away soon, but it's still offered now.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I'll be sure to include that in the show notes for everyone, but some people may be already there now taking the quiz. So
yeah. And then you'll, at the end, you'll also see that if you want to look at a top, you want to look at other products and you want to go a little deeper into my website, it's accessible after you watch the results.
All right, very good. Well, thanks a lot again for taking the time to do this. Hopefully it's shed some light and brought some more awareness to people. So really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope your audience has gotten some things out of it. And it's like there's nothing like this in the world. So that's why they'll never be able to find it. I'm the only one that was able to discover it. But thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate you.
Sure, absolutely. All right, that's another episode of Scalable Real Estate Investing. Thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to leave a review and subscribe on whatever channel you're using to listen or watch these episodes. And also be sure to go to scalablerealestateinvesting.com, scroll to the bottom, and fill out the form to sign up for our email. And you could also reach me directly at mason@scalablerealestateinvesting.com. That's MASON at scalablerealestateinvesting.com. If you'd like to get in touch with me to either partner on deals or even be considered to do your own episode on this podcast. Thanks again, and have a great day.